Millions of Americans who go to college are facing the crushing effects of student debt. One America's Jennifer Franco takes an in-depth look at the crisis gripping the nation and how the Trump administration is trying to handle the mess it inherited.
They say an education is priceless, but the numbers tell a different story. The latest numbers show in recent years, more than 70% of students walked away with debts. On average, someone who graduated last year with a bachelor's degree owes nearly $40,000, totaling more than $1 trillion nationally. And that's spread out among more than 44 million Americans. The majority are under the age of 30. And the situation is only getting worse. After years of tuition hikes, it's getting harder to pay for college without taking on loans, something OEN intern Anna Nelson is all too familiar with.
Probably by the time that I graduate, I will have up around $20,000 to pay back.
A lot of times, students are confused about their loans and don't think about the interest rate attached to them or how they'll pay for them, putting borrowers in a financial trap. Something Jesse Surin learned the hard way.
At this point, I feel like they're never going down. So until I have $90,000, that's when I feel like I'm going to be able to pay it, because these little payments aren't doing anything.
To give you more perspective, someone who's fresh out of college who owes $30,000 in loans would have to pay about $300 a month over a standard 10-year repayment plan to pay off their debt, though sometimes it's taken them 20 years to be debt-free. And because of high interest rates, they'd end up paying more than $6,000 more than they borrowed, money that could have been put towards a house or put away for retirement. But that is all about to change. Future graduates, they can expect loans to get even more expensive. Beginning in July, the government is raising interest rates to nearly 5% on new federal loans, meaning students could end up paying thousands more.
Obviously, I don't like that interest rates are going up. I just think in general it's going to have a negative impact on me.
Anna is lucky she gets help from her parents, but for the majority, that's not the case. Even though they're significantly more educated, millennials, they're still making 20% less than their parents at the same point in life, meaning a lot of people are struggling to pay. According to the Department of Education, at least half of the students at more than 1,000 schools defaulted or failed to pay within 7 years. The problem isn't just hurting millennials' credit score, forcing them to put off things like starting a family or buying a home. It's threatening the entire economy.
Because the government's involved, a student loan bubble bursting is increased in probability just that little extra bit, because when the government's involved, the prices of tuition increase, the loans have therefore increased, and therefore the defaults have increased, which increases the total likelihood of a bubble bursting.
Well, the issue isn't new. Student loan debt has been on the rise for the past decade. In fact, most of it piled up on Obama's watch. That is when the government started making it easier for more people to go to college by handing out loans that students sometimes couldn't afford. These loans then collected fees when students defaulted and allowed loan companies to do the same. It started out as a way for the federal government to subsidize young people to pay for school and incentivize those who couldn't find work during the recession to go back to school and live off loans. But things didn't quite pan out. Schools saw an opportunity to cash in and ran with it.
The government is giving more money to students, and they're giving more money to schools, but we're not seeing the demand change. So they're just raising the prices so that they can moderate the amount of students in their school and the amount of students that are willing to pay that amount.
Numbers from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York show the more federal student aid programs were expanded, the more tuition skyrocketed. In the meantime, the public debate on who is to blame for the student debt crisis has shifted in recent years, as many critics point the finger at the colleges themselves.
I really like education. I like going to school. I like learning with other people, and I like being around people my age in an environment where we're all encouraged to learn about ourselves.
Students like Anna, they go to school to get a good education, promised high-paying jobs to pay off their loans, but what colleges don't teach them is how to better handle their personal finances. new study from Lend.edu found that more than 30%, that's roughly 2 million young adults, admitted to using student loan money to pay for spring break trips and dining out. But students, they're not the only ones mishandling money. Last month, a state audit revealed a bombshell about how University of California President Janet Napolitano's office had been mishandling its funds. It showed the office failed to disclose $175 million in funds, spent thousands more on staff appreciation and holiday parties, and was providing outrageous salaries and benefits, raising questions about lavish spending practices as the university hikes tuition on students. Last year, ITT Tech shut its doors after it lost federal funding and was hit with a number of lawsuits accusing the for-profit school of scamming students and defrauding investors, ultimately leaving people with no degree, no job, and still on the hook for that bill. On the campaign trail, then candidate Trump took the crucial first step of highlighting the student loan debt crisis.
The saddest thing I see is these students are leveraged debt up to their neck. They can't breathe. They're scared.
Well, now that he's in charge, President Trump is taking swift action to bring real change to the broken education system and subsequently the student lending system. He has signed an executive order designed to boost apprenticeships and vocational training to offer millions a path to the American dream.
Apprenticeships place students into great jobs without the crippling debt of traditional four-year college degrees. Instead, apprentices earn while they learn.
The Department of Education also plans on pausing two Obama-era rules on student borrower protection in order to roll out better regulations that protect borrowers from fraud, hold schools accountable, and protect taxpayers. Secretary DeVos made clear the issue is at the top of her department's agenda by releasing a statement saying, quote, "My first priority is to protect students. Fraud, especially fraud committed by a school, is simply unacceptable. Unfortunately, last year's rulemaking effort missed an opportunity to get it right." And while the rules are being reworked, DeVos said her department would continue processing the thousands of claims already filed by students who have been defrauded by for-profit schools. The administration has also proposed sweeping student loan reforms as part of the 2018 White House budget. Some of the changes aim to help low-income borrowers by offering better repayment plans where debt is forgiven sooner. The White House estimates these changes will save taxpayers billions over the next decade and is hoping to then steer those savings towards school choice initiatives and fulfill its mission of giving power back to the states and communities so students and their parents can make better decisions about their education early on.
So because of what President Trump has done to the student loan market so far, we could see a positive change in the total student loan market, but it's going to take a little while for the market to change and for us to see that.
But a problem of this size requires several solutions, many of which could still be laid out on the table by the administration. Though it remains to be addressed, President Trump could restore bankruptcy protections, which would offer some relief to millions who are dealing with the stress of never-ending debt. Experts say this would enable the Department of Education to tighten the belt on schools and push them to lower the price of tuition and reduce federal lending limits. The reality is there's only so much the president can do to make things better. Ultimately, Congress must decide whether to turn his proposals into legislation. To make your voice heard on the issue, contact your senators and representatives in Congress and demand change. And until they buckle down, student debt threatens to hold the financial future of millions like Anna hostage for years to come.
It's just like, I wonder how much more the prices are going to increase in the future because people can't afford that. It's just like, it doesn't make sense.
Jennifer Franco, One America News.